"You picked the wrong bathroom on the wrong day," the voice hissed, as three figures blocked the exit. 17-year-old Chloe Reeves looked up from washing her hands, her reflection showing a petite girl with auburn hair and freckles scattered across her gentle face. The leader, a tall blonde named Brianna Kowalski, stepped forward with malicious intent gleaming in her eyes. Behind her, two accomplices, Jenna and Ashley Park, positioned themselves like predators cornering prey. But what these girls didn't know was that they had just trapped someone whose father could mobilize an entire fleet of Navy SEALs with a single phone call. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The bathroom at Riverside High School in Millbrook, Connecticut, had become an unlikely battleground. Steam rose from the recently used sinks, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the scent of industrial soap hung heavy in the air. It was 3:40 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, that dead time when most students had either left for the day or were busy with after-school activities. The isolation was perfect for what Brianna had planned, or so she thought. "Look at little Miss Perfect," Brianna sneered, her designer boots clicking against the tiled floor as she approached. "Walking around here like you own the place, getting all the teachers' attention with your perfect grades and your fake innocent act." Her voice carried the venom of someone who had been planning this confrontation for weeks, building up resentment over Chloe's academic success and the way she effortlessly earned respect from both faculty and peers. Chloe turned slowly, her movements calm and measured in a way that should have been the first warning sign. Her green eyes, inherited from her mother, held a steadiness that seemed unusual for someone facing three aggressive classmates in a confined space. She dried her hands methodically with a paper towel, her breathing controlled and even. Years of living in a military household had taught her to assess threats quickly and respond with calculated precision, though she had hoped never to need those skills in a high school bathroom. "I don't want any trouble," Chloe said quietly, her voice carrying an undertone of authority that Brianna was too blinded by anger to notice. She crumpled the paper towel and tossed it into the waste bin with practiced accuracy, the simple motion revealing a coordination that spoke of extensive training. "Just let me pass, and we can pretend this never happened." Jenna laughed mockingly from her position by the door, her strawberry blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail that swayed as she shook her head. "Oh, you don't want trouble? That's rich coming from the girl who made me look stupid in chemistry class yesterday." Her face flushed with remembered embarrassment as she recalled how Chloe had politely corrected her answer during a lab discussion, inadvertently highlighting Jenna's lack of preparation. Ashley, the quietest of the three, stepped closer with clenched fists. Her usually neat brown hair had escaped its clips, giving her a wild appearance that matched her growing aggression. "You think you're better than us with your perfect homework and your teacher's pet routine? Time someone knocked you down a few pegs." She had been nursing her own grudges. Chloe's effortless excellence in their shared classes had made Ashley's own struggles more apparent to teachers and classmates alike. The bathroom felt smaller with each passing second, the walls seeming to close in as tension escalated. Chloe's trained eye automatically cataloged escape routes, potential weapons, and her opponent's positioning. The single door behind her attackers, the window too high and small to be useful. Three opponents with reach advantages but no apparent combat training. Her father's lessons echoed in her mind. Situational awareness, honey. Always know what you're dealing with before you act. What Brianna, Jenna, and Ashley didn't know was that they were facing someone who had spent summers training with elite military personnel, learning hand-to-hand combat from instructors who had seen action in the world's most dangerous conflicts. They didn't know that the quiet girl they perceived as an easy target had been raised by Admiral Nathan Reeves, the youngest person ever to command SEAL Team 7 and a legend within the special operations community. "Listen carefully," Chloe said, her tone shifting subtly but unmistakably. The change was so minute that her attackers missed it, but anyone with military training would have recognized the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "This is your last chance to walk away. I'm asking nicely because that's who I am, but I'm only going to ask once." Brianna's face contorted with rage at what she perceived as condescension. "Are you threatening us? Little Miss Goody Two-Shoes is threatening us." She looked back at her accomplices with theatrical disbelief. "Did you hear that? She thinks she can threaten us." The afternoon sun streamed through the small bathroom window, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. In exactly 3 minutes, the custodial staff would begin their routine cleaning rounds. In 5 minutes, the late bus would arrive for students who stayed for tutoring. In 7 minutes, Coach Martinez would finish up basketball practice and send players to shower in the locker rooms adjacent to this very bathroom. Time was working against everyone involved, but only Chloe seemed aware of the approaching complications. Her phone, tucked safely in her backpack, hanging on the sink counter, contained a contact list that would have stunned her classmates. Direct lines to Pentagon officials, Navy commanders, and security personnel who treated her not just as their superior's daughter, but as family. But Chloe had never used those connections for personal gain, never leveraged her father's position for social advantage. She preferred earning respect through her own merit. Maintaining the low profile that her father had taught her was essential for both safety and character development. That preference for anonymity was about to change dramatically. As Brianna stepped forward, her hand reaching out to shove Chloe against the sink, none of them could have predicted that this moment would soon involve encrypted military communications, emergency response protocols, and a phone call that would send shockwaves through the entire Millbrook community. They were about to learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room carries the loudest authority, and that underestimating someone based on appearance could lead to consequences far beyond their imagination. The confrontation was seconds away from escalating beyond words, and 3 bullies were about to discover they had cornered the wrong girl on the wrong day. Chloe Reeves had always been invisible at Riverside High School, and that was exactly how she preferred it. At 17, she stood barely 5'3", with a slender frame that made her look even younger than her years. Her auburn hair was typically pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her clothes were deliberately unremarkable: jeans, sneakers, and plain sweaters that helped her blend into the background of teenage social hierarchies. To her classmates, she was simply the quiet girl who sat in the front row, turned in perfect assignments, and never caused trouble. "She's just a nobody," Brianna had told her friends countless times over the past few weeks, plotting this confrontation. "Little mouse girl who thinks she's smart. Her dad probably works some boring office job, and her mom probably bakes cookies for the PTA." The assumption came easily. Chloe never talked about her family, never showed off expensive clothes or gadgets, never name-dropped connections or bragged about vacations to exotic locations. What Brianna couldn't have known was that Chloe's modest appearance was carefully cultivated. Her father had taught her from an early age that true strength often came disguised as weakness, that the most dangerous operators were those who could disappear in plain sight. Blend in, stand out through actions when necessary, but never through appearance. Admiral Reeves had coached her during their weekend training sessions that neighbors assumed were just father-daughter hiking trips. Jenna Morris, positioning herself between Chloe and the bathroom stalls, felt emboldened by what she saw as obvious physical advantages. At 5'8" with an athletic build from 3 years of varsity volleyball, she towered over the smaller girl. "Look at her," she sneered, gesturing dismissively. "Probably never been in a real fight in her life. Bet she runs crying to the principal the minute things get tough." The irony was palpable, though none of Brianna's crew could appreciate it. Chloe had indeed never been in a real fight because her training had focused on ending conflicts before they became fights, and when violence was unavoidable, ending it quickly and decisively. The difference between a street fight and tactical engagement was something these girls couldn't comprehend. Ashley Park, the smallest of the three attackers but still taller than Chloe, felt a surge of confidence as she studied their target. "She's probably one of those kids whose parents hover over her constantly. Bet she's never had to stand up for herself because mommy and daddy solve all her problems." Her voice carried the bitterness of someone whose own parents were too busy with demanding careers to pay much attention to her struggles. If Ashley had known the truth, she might have reconsidered her assessment. Chloe's parents had indeed been involved in her upbringing, but their version of protection involved teaching her to protect herself and others. While other parents were signing their children up for soccer camps and music lessons, Admiral Reeves was ensuring his daughter could handle herself in hostile environments, and Dr. Sarah Reeves, herself a former Army medic turned emergency room physician, was teaching tactical first aid alongside traditional homework help. "Her whole perfect student thing is just an act," Brianna continued, working herself up for the physical confrontation she'd been planning. "Bet she's just as weak and pathetic as she looks. Probably never had anyone challenge her fake little bubble." She cracked her knuckles dramatically, a gesture meant to intimidate that only revealed her inexperience with actual violence. The bathroom's harsh lighting cast unflattering shadows across all four girls' faces, but Chloe's expression remained remarkably serene. Her green eyes moved calmly between her three attackers, noting their positioning, their body language, their obvious lack of tactical awareness. Brianna was broadcasting her intentions with every gesture. Jenna was overconfident because of her size advantage, and Ashley was clearly following the other's lead rather than thinking independently. "You know what your problem is?" Brianna stepped closer, invading Chloe's personal space with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for aggressive behavior. "You think you're untouchable, walking around here with your nose in books, acting like you're too good to talk to normal people. Well, nobody's coming to save you in here." The statement hung in the air with terrible irony. If Brianna had truly understood who she was confronting, she would have known that Chloe had access to rescue capabilities that most people couldn't imagine. But Admiral Reeves had raised his daughter to be self-reliant first, to call for backup only when absolutely necessary, and to handle her own battles whenever possible. Teachers at Riverside High had always described Chloe as exceptionally mature for her age, without understanding why. Her homework was turned in with military precision. Her projects were researched and executed with thoroughness that impressed even veteran educators, and her responses to conflict were measured and diplomatic in ways that seemed almost unnaturally sophisticated for a teenager. "She's probably never even seen violence except on TV," Jenna added, flexing her volleyball-trained shoulders. "Sheltered little princess who thinks the world is all sunshine and rainbows. Time for a reality check." Her assessment couldn't have been more wrong. Chloe had seen violence, had been trained to understand it, analyze it, and respond to it with calculated efficiency. The three girls had spent weeks building their narrative about who Chloe was, creating a profile based on surface observations and teenage assumptions. They saw academic success and interpreted it as social weakness. They noticed her preference for solitude and labeled it as isolation born from inadequacy. They observed her calm demeanor and mistook it for passivity that could be easily exploited. Ashley took another step forward, emboldened by the group dynamic. Maybe after we're done here, you'll learn your place in the social order. Some people are leaders and some people are followers. Guess which one you are? Her voice carried false bravado, the sound of someone trying to convince herself as much as intimidate her target. What none of them realized was that they were looking at someone who had been shaped by leadership principles from the highest levels of military command. Chloe's apparent submissiveness was actually restraint. Her quietness was tactical patience, and her academic focus was the discipline of someone trained to excel under pressure. The dismissal was complete, the underestimation total. 3 aggressive teenagers had convinced themselves they were facing easy prey, someone who would crumble under pressure and provide them with the satisfaction of establishing dominance. They had no idea they were about to encounter someone whose father could deploy some of the most elite warriors on the planet, and whose own training had prepared her for situations far more dangerous than a high school bathroom confrontation. The stage was set for a revelation that would shatter every assumption they had made. The moment Brianna's hand shot forward to shove Chloe against the sink, something fundamental shifted in the bathroom's atmosphere. Instead of stumbling backward or crying out in fear as her attackers expected, Chloe moved with fluid precision that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Her left hand intercepted Brianna's wrist with surgical accuracy, redirecting the aggressive push into empty air, while her right hand found Brianna's elbow, applying just enough pressure to send a clear message without causing lasting damage. "I really don't want to do this," Chloe said quietly, her voice carrying an undertone of authority that none of the 3 girls recognized. Her grip on Brianna's arm was firm but controlled, demonstrating a level of physical capability that contradicted everything they thought they knew about the quiet honor student. The movement had been so smooth, so practiced, that it looked almost choreographed. Brianna's eyes widened in shock as she found herself unable to complete her intended attack. The grip on her arm wasn't painful, but it was absolutely immovable, as if she had tried to push against a steel beam disguised as a teenage girl. How did you—" she stammered, confusion replacing her earlier confidence. This wasn't how the confrontation was supposed to unfold in her carefully planned scenario. Jenna Morris immediately stepped forward to help her friend, swinging her volleyball-trained arm in a wide arc aimed at Chloe's head. But instead of the satisfying impact she expected, she found her fist caught mid-swing by Chloe's free hand, stopped with the casual efficiency of someone swatting a particularly slow fly. The catch was so effortless that Jenna began to question whether she had actually thrown the punch with any real force. "Please don't make me escalate this situation," Chloe continued, now controlling both attackers with a grip that seemed impossibly strong for someone her size. Her voice remained calm, almost conversational, as if she were discussing homework assignments rather than defending herself against physical assault. The disconnect between her peaceful tone and her obvious physical dominance created an unsettling cognitive dissonance for her would-be attackers. Ashley Park, witnessing her 2 friends being effortlessly neutralized, felt a chill of genuine fear creep up her spine. This wasn't the cowering victim they had expected to terrorize. The girl holding her friends looked exactly the same. Same slight build, same unremarkable appearance, but she was moving with the confidence and skill of someone who had been in far more dangerous situations than a high school bathroom confrontation. Years of training with her father's colleagues had taught Chloe to read combat situations with tactical precision. These weren't trained fighters. They were emotional teenagers acting on impulse and anger. Their movements were telegraphed, their positioning was poor, and their understanding of leverage and balance was non-existent. What should have been a 3-against-1 advantage had become a demonstration of how little size and numbers mattered when facing someone with proper training. "This is impossible," Brianna breathed, struggling against the grip that held her as securely as a pair of handcuffs. She had always been the dominant personality in her social circle, the one who got her way through intimidation and social pressure. Physical confrontation had never been necessary, because her reputation and attitude usually made others back down before things escalated to violence. Chloe's father had drilled into her the importance of controlling engagement parameters. Never use more force than necessary, Admiral Reeves had taught her during their weekend training sessions. The goal is to neutralize threats while minimizing harm to all parties involved. Excessive force creates more problems than it solves. Those lessons were evident now as she maintained perfect control over the situation without inflicting any actual injury. The bathroom's fluorescent lighting cast stark shadows as the four girls remained frozen in their unusual tableau. Jenna was beginning to understand that she was completely outmatched, her athletic training useless against someone who seemed to understand leverage and pressure points with scientific precision. Her volleyball skills had taught her to spike balls over nets, not to engage in close-quarters combat with someone who moved like water, flowing around obstacles. "Who are you?" Ashley whispered, the question carrying genuine bewilderment. The transformation she was witnessing didn't make sense according to her understanding of how the world worked. Quiet students were supposed to be victims, not controllers of violent situations. Academic achievers were supposed to be physically weak, not capable of neutralizing multiple attackers simultaneously. Chloe's response revealed another layer of her unusual upbringing. Instead of gloating about her obvious advantage or threatening her attackers with further demonstration of her capabilities, she began de-escalating with the patience of a trained negotiator. "I'm the same person I've always been. You just made some incorrect assumptions about what that means." Her grip remained firm but not punishing, a demonstration of control rather than cruelty. The military precision of her movements was becoming more apparent with each passing second, though her attackers lacked the experience to recognize the specific techniques being employed against them. What they could recognize was the absolute futility of their position and the growing realization that they had initiated a confrontation with someone far beyond their capabilities. Brianna's carefully constructed plan was crumbling as she faced the reality that her target possessed skills that belonged in action movies, not suburban high school bathrooms. Her social dominance, built on the assumption that aggression would be met with submission, meant nothing against someone who could neutralize physical threats with surgical precision. The clock on the bathroom wall continued its steady progress toward 4 p.m., marking time that felt simultaneously frozen and accelerated. In the hallways beyond, normal high school life continued. Students grabbing books from lockers, teachers grading papers, custodians preparing for their evening cleaning routines. None of them aware that a few yards away, 3 bullies were discovering that their carefully chosen victim was anything but helpless. Jenna made one final attempt to break free, using her height advantage to try twisting away from Chloe's grip. The movement was futile, countered so smoothly that she barely felt the adjustment that kept her firmly controlled. It was becoming clear that brute force wasn't going to solve this problem, and the growing respect in her eyes suggested she was beginning to understand that she had severely underestimated her opponent. The initiative had completely shifted, though none of them yet understood how dramatically their lives were about to change. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Despite the clear demonstration of Chloe's unexpected capabilities, the 3 attackers refused to accept the reality of their situation. Brianna, her face flushed with embarrassment and stubborn pride, continued to struggle against the grip that held her with mechanical precision. "This is just some lucky martial arts move she saw in a movie," she declared breathlessly, trying to convince herself as much as her friends. She can't keep this up forever. She's still just a scrawny little nobody. The denial was almost pathetic in its desperation. Brianna had built her entire social identity around being the dominant force in any confrontation, and accepting that she had been effortlessly neutralized by someone she considered beneath her would require dismantling her entire worldview. Her mind scrambled for explanations that would preserve her sense of superiority. Maybe Chloe had taken a self-defense class. Maybe she had gotten lucky. Maybe this was all just a fluke that wouldn't happen again. Jenna, still trapped in Chloe's other hand, began testing different angles of resistance. Her volleyball training had taught her about leverage and timing, and she was convinced that her athletic background would eventually give her an advantage. "You can't hold both of us forever," she panted, trying to twist her wrist free. "And when you let go, we're going to finish what we started. You might know some fancy moves, but you're still outnumbered." What Jenna didn't understand was that Chloe's training had specifically focused on multiple opponent scenarios. Admiral Reeves had brought in instructors who specialized in teaching small unit tactics, emphasizing how numerical disadvantages could be overcome through superior positioning, timing, and technique. Her current hold on both attackers was actually a relatively simple application of principles designed for much more dangerous situations. Ashley Park, the only one still free to move, circled nervously around the controlled confrontation. Her mind raced with possibilities. She could try to help her friends. She could run for assistance, or she could attempt to negotiate some kind of face-saving retreat. But each option seemed flawed when facing someone who had just demonstrated capabilities that defied her understanding of how physical confrontations were supposed to work. "Maybe she's on drugs," Ashley suggested desperately, grasping for any explanation that would make sense of what she was witnessing. "Like those stories you hear about people getting superhuman strength from adrenaline or chemicals. That has to be it. Normal people can't move like that." Her voice carried the pleading tone of someone whose basic assumptions about reality were being challenged in uncomfortable ways. Chloe maintained her holds with the patience of someone accustomed to controlling volatile situations. Her breathing remained steady, her posture relaxed despite managing two struggling opponents simultaneously. The contrast between her calm demeanor and her obvious physical dominance was becoming more pronounced with each passing moment, creating an unsettling dynamic that her attackers couldn't process effectively. "You're making this harder on yourselves," Chloe observed quietly, adjusting her grip slightly as Brianna attempted another futile escape maneuver. "I'm not trying to hurt you, but I'm not going to let you hurt me either. We can stay here like this until you're ready to have a rational conversation, or until someone comes to check on what's taking so long in here." The mention of potential interruption sent a new wave of panic through the three girls. Being discovered in their current position would be humiliating beyond imagination. Three aggressive students being effortlessly controlled by the quiet honor student they had cornered for what they assumed would be easy intimidation. Their reputations, carefully cultivated images of dominance and social power, would be destroyed if word spread about this encounter. Brianna's struggles became more frantic as she realized the broader implications of their situation. "You can't tell anyone about this," she demanded, though her position hardly allowed for making demands. "This is just between us. What happens in here stays in here." The irony of the bully trying to negotiate discretion from her intended victim was lost on her in the heat of the moment. Despite their predicament, the three attackers continued to underestimate Chloe's true capabilities. They saw her current control of the situation as impressive, but assumed it represented the full extent of her abilities. They had no framework for understanding that what they were experiencing was actually a restrained demonstration, that Chloe was deliberately limiting herself to non-harmful techniques while remaining capable of much more decisive action if circumstances required it. Jenna made another attempt to break free, this time trying to use her height advantage to create leverage against Chloe's grip. The movement was countered so smoothly that she barely felt the adjustment, but the ease with which her attack was neutralized sent another chill of realization through her consciousness. "This isn't normal," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "People our age don't move like this." The observation was accurate but incomplete. Chloe's movements weren't normal for their age group, or for most age groups, because they represented years of specialized training that few civilians ever received. Her father had ensured that she possessed skills typically reserved for military special operations personnel, though none of her current opponents had the background necessary to recognize the specific nature of her training. Ashley continued her nervous circling, trying to find an angle of attack that might help her friends, or at least give her some sense of agency in the situation. But every potential approach seemed futile against someone who was maintaining perfect situational awareness while simultaneously controlling two struggling opponents. "There has to be something we can do," she whispered, though her voice carried little conviction. The bathroom clock continued its relentless advance toward 4:05 p.m., marking time that felt both eternal and fleeting to everyone involved. Each second that passed with Chloe maintaining effortless control over the situation further eroded the attackers' confidence in their original assessment of her capabilities. Yet pride, stubbornness, and social conditioning prevented them from fully accepting the reality of their circumstances. The growing competence Chloe displayed wasn't just physical. Her tactical awareness, her emotional control, and her ability to manage a complex situation under pressure all suggested training and experience far beyond what any normal teenager should possess. But her attackers remained focused on finding explanations that would allow them to maintain their existing worldview rather than accepting the evidence before their eyes. The skepticism was about to encounter something that would make continued denial impossible. The bathroom door suddenly rattled as someone tried the handle from outside, followed by a sharp knock that echoed off the tiled walls. "Chloe, you in there? Your phone's been buzzing like crazy in your locker," came the concerned voice of Maya Chen, a junior who worked as a student aide in the main office. The interruption sent a jolt of panic through Brianna, Jenna, and Ashley, who realized their carefully planned confrontation was about to become very public. Chloe's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of concern crossing her features for the first time during the encounter. Her phone buzzing repeatedly could mean only one thing. Her father was trying to reach her during school hours, which violated their established communication protocols unless something serious was happening. Admiral Reeves never interrupted her academic schedule without urgent cause, and the timing felt ominous given her current situation. "I'm fine, Maya," Chloe called back calmly, though her grip on her two captives remained perfectly steady. "Just give me a couple more minutes and I'll be right out." Her voice carried no trace of the stress that anyone in her position should have been experiencing, maintaining the same composed tone she used during normal classroom discussions. But Maya Chen wasn't easily dismissed. As the daughter of two helicopter parents and possessing an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, she had noticed patterns that others missed. "Your phone started going off during fourth period chemistry," she called through the door, her voice taking on a more urgent tone. "Like emergency-level buzzing. Mrs. Patterson had to put it in her desk drawer because it was disrupting the whole class." The information sent a chill down Chloe's spine that had nothing to do with her current confrontation. Her father's communication device was programmed with specific alert patterns, standard calls, urgent calls, and emergency protocols that could literally mean life or death situations involving national security. If her phone had been buzzing continuously during class time, something significant was happening that required immediate family communication. Brianna saw an opportunity in Chloe's momentary distraction and made another desperate attempt to break free, throwing her full weight against the grip that held her. Instead of the successful escape she hoped for, she found herself redirected with such precise control that she actually ended up in a more disadvantaged position than before. Chloe's response had been automatic, requiring no conscious thought, revealing a level of training that operated at reflex speed. "You need to answer your phone," Ashley said suddenly, her voice carrying a note of genuine concern that surprised everyone, including herself. "If someone's trying to reach you that urgently, maybe you should—" She stopped mid-sentence as she realized she was giving advice to someone who was currently controlling her friends with apparent ease. The suggestion created an interesting tactical dilemma for Chloe. Her training emphasized maintaining control of threatening situations until they were fully resolved, but her family protocols demanded immediate response to emergency communications. The conflict between these two imperatives was something her father's training scenarios had never specifically addressed. She had never imagined being trapped in a high school bathroom confrontation while potentially critical military communications were attempting to reach her. Maya's voice came through the door again, more insistent now. "Chloe, seriously, I think you need to see this. The main office got a call asking about you specifically. Mrs. Rodriguez said she's never seen anything like it. Some kind of priority verification request. They want to confirm you're safe and accounted for." The blood drained from Chloe's face as the implications hit her. Priority verification requests were part of military family emergency protocols used when dependents of high-ranking personnel might be at risk during classified operations or security incidents. If the school was receiving official inquiries about her safety and location, it meant her father's current mission status had changed dramatically, possibly putting her at elevated risk from hostile forces. "What's a priority verification request?" Jenna whispered, her struggles against Chloe's grip ceasing as she recognized the serious tone in the conversation. Despite her limited understanding of military procedures, something about the phrase sounded official and ominous in ways that transcended typical teenage drama. For the first time since the confrontation began, Chloe made a decision that prioritized something other than the immediate physical situation. "Maya, I need you to do something for me," she called out, her voice taking on a note of authority that made the student aide immediately stop what she was doing and listen carefully. "Go to the main office and tell Mrs. Rodriguez that Lima 77 is secure and requesting immediate communication clearance." The code phrase hung in the air like a cryptic incantation, meaningless to the three would-be attackers, but carrying enormous significance within military communication networks. Lima 77 was Chloe's family designation code, used in situations where standard civilian communication channels might be compromised or monitored. Her request for communication clearance would immediately identify her as the dependent of a senior military official requiring emergency contact. "Lima, what now?" Maya's confused voice came through the door. "Chloe, what are you talking about? That sounds like some kind of military thing." The student aide's bewilderment was understandable. She had never heard anything like the precise, coded language that Chloe had just used with casual familiarity. Ashley, Jenna, and Brianna exchanged glances filled with growing unease. The girl they had cornered as easy prey was speaking in codes that sounded like something from spy movies, responding to emergency protocols with the calm efficiency of someone accustomed to such procedures. The cognitive dissonance between their perception of quiet, bookish Chloe and the person now demonstrating military communication protocols was becoming impossible to ignore. "Just repeat exactly what I said," Chloe instructed Maya, her voice carrying an unmistakable note of command authority. "Mrs. Rodriguez will understand what it means, and she'll know how to handle the communication request. Tell her it's urgent. Family emergency protocols are in effect." The mention of family emergency protocols sent another wave of realization through her captives. Normal teenagers didn't have family emergency protocols, didn't speak in military codes, and didn't respond to school office inquiries with the systematic precision Chloe was displaying. They were beginning to understand that their chosen victim possessed connections and background far beyond anything they had imagined. Maya's footsteps could be heard hurrying away down the hallway, her mission clear, even if she didn't understand its significance. Left alone again, the four girls faced a transformed dynamic. Chloe was no longer just defending herself against bullies. She was managing a potential security situation while maintaining control over hostile individuals who had attacked a military dependent during what appeared to be family crisis circumstances. The revelation was about to get much more serious. Within minutes of Maya's departure, the school's public address system crackled to life, with an announcement that sent shockwaves through Riverside High School. "Attention all staff and students," came the stern voice of Principal Rodriguez, her usual calm demeanor replaced by something approaching military precision. "We are implementing immediate security protocols. All students must report to designated safe areas. This is not a drill." The announcement was followed by something unprecedented in the school's history: the distant sound of helicopter rotors approaching the campus. Through the bathroom's small window, Chloe could see the sleek silhouette of what appeared to be a military transport helicopter circling the school grounds, its presence transforming the suburban Connecticut campus into something resembling a tactical operation zone. Brianna's eyes widened as the reality of the situation began to penetrate her stubborn denial. "That's not normal," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the growing sound of rotor blades. "Schools don't get helicopter visits unless something really serious is happening." Her grip on her previous assumptions about Chloe was beginning to crumble as evidence mounted that this was far beyond typical teenage conflict. The bathroom door burst open suddenly, revealing not the expected student aide or teacher, but two men in crisp military uniforms who moved with the controlled urgency of trained security personnel. The taller man, wearing the insignia of a Navy commander, immediately assessed the situation with professional efficiency, his eyes taking in the unusual tableau of one small girl, controlling two larger opponents while a third stood frozen nearby. "Lima 77, identify yourself," the commander said sharply, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance with orders. His hand rested casually near his sidearm, not threatening but clearly ready to respond to any potential threats to his principal concern. "Commander Peterson, identification code Tango 49 Charlie," Chloe responded without hesitation, her voice shifting into the crisp, professional tone she had learned during countless family briefings. "Situation contained. No injuries. 3 civilian students involved in minor altercation. Requesting guidance on civilian management protocols." The exchange sent chills through Ashley, Jenna, and Brianna as they witnessed Chloe communicating with military personnel using language and procedures that suggested extensive familiarity with official protocols. This wasn't a girl pretending to know military codes. This was someone who clearly belonged in that world, speaking with the confidence of someone who had been part of it her entire life. Commander Peterson's second companion, a woman wearing Marine captain's bars, stepped forward with a tablet device that she consulted briefly. Admiral Reeves's daughter confirmed secure, she reported into a small communications unit. Location: Riverside High School, Building C, second floor bathroom. No apparent threats to package. Her clinical language reduced Chloe to military terminology while simultaneously revealing the staggering implication that an admiral was personally concerned about this situation. Package? Jenna croaked, her voice barely functioning as the implications crashed over her. She's an admiral's daughter? The revelation was so far beyond her worst-case scenarios that she could barely process it. They had cornered and threatened the daughter of someone who commanded naval operations, someone whose authority extended across multiple branches of military service. The Marine captain's expression was professionally neutral as she addressed the three attackers, though her eyes carried the cold assessment of someone evaluating potential security threats. Young ladies, you are currently in physical contact with a dependent of a senior military official during an active security alert. I need you to step away from her immediately and assume non-threatening positions against the wall. Ashley's legs nearly gave out as the full scope of their mistake became clear. We didn't know, she stammered, raising her hands instinctively as if surrendering to arrest. We just thought we didn't realize. Oh God, we attacked an admiral's daughter. The social dynamics that had driven their confrontation seemed pathetically trivial when faced with the reality of military security protocols. Commander Peterson was speaking rapidly into his communication device, coordinating with unseen personnel using terminology that sounded like something from a war movie. Confirmed secure package retrieval, requesting immediate family communication link and threat assessment briefing. Local authorities should be notified of potential security breach involving dependent harassment. The mention of local authorities sent Brianna into full panic mode. Security breach? Dependent harassment? We were just having a fight, normal high school stuff. Her voice rose to near hysteria as she realized that their teenage bullying incident was being classified in terms that suggested serious legal and possibly federal consequences. Through the small bathroom window, more activity was becoming visible. Additional vehicles were arriving on campus, official-looking SUVs with government plates and several local police cars responding to what was clearly a coordinated security operation. Students and faculty could be seen being directed away from the building by personnel who moved with military precision. Ma'am, the Marine captain addressed Chloe directly. Your father has requested immediate secure communication. The situation that triggered family emergency protocols has been resolved, but he needs to confirm your status personally before we can stand down the security response. Her tone was respectful but urgent, indicating that high-level military operations were on hold pending this conversation. Chloe finally released her holds on Brianna and Jenna, both of whom immediately stepped away and pressed themselves against the bathroom wall, as instructed. Her movements remained controlled and professional as she accepted a secure communication device from Commander Peterson. Understood, Captain. Ready for secure communication. The device crackled to life with a voice that carried unmistakable parental concern mixed with command authority. Chloe, are you safe? Give me a complete status report. Even through the encrypted communication link, Admiral Nathan Reeves's worry for his daughter was evident, humanizing the high-ranking military official behind the tactical response. I'm fine, Dad, Chloe replied, her professional demeanor softening slightly at the sound of her father's voice. Minor incident with some classmates, but no injuries and situation resolved. I maintained protocols and civilian safety throughout. Her report was concise and military precise, yet carried the affection of a daughter reassuring her worried father. The three former attackers listened in stunned silence as they witnessed a conversation between two people who clearly shared not just family bonds, but professional understanding of security procedures and crisis management. They were observing a world that existed far beyond their suburban high school experience, a world where their actions had triggered responses involving helicopter deployments and multi-agency coordination. The external validation of Chloe's extraordinary background was complete and undeniable. As the secure communication continued, Admiral Nathan Reeves' voice carried the weight of someone accustomed to briefing presidents and commanding fleets, yet tinged with the unmistakable concern of a protective father. "Chloe, I need you to understand why we had to implement emergency protocols today. Operation Midnight Harbor was compromised 6 hours ago. Hostile intelligence agencies identified key personnel families, including ours. We had credible threats against military dependents." The revelation sent another wave of shock through the bathroom as Brianna, Jenna, and Ashley realized they had attacked someone whose family was actively being targeted by foreign hostile forces. Their teenage bullying incident had occurred during what was essentially a national security crisis, transforming their actions from simple harassment into something potentially catastrophic in scope. Commander Peterson stepped forward to provide additional context, his voice carrying the gravity of someone delivering classified briefings. "Miss Reeves, your father is Admiral Nathan Reeves, commanding officer of SEAL Team 7 and current director of Naval Special Operations. He's been leading classified missions in the South China Sea for the past 18 months, operations that several foreign governments would kill to compromise." Jenna's legs buckled as the magnitude of their target's identity became clear. SEAL Team 7 was legendary, even among civilians, the unit responsible for the most dangerous and secretive military operations on the planet. They had cornered and physically attacked the daughter of someone who commanded the most elite warriors in the American military, someone whose missions were classified at levels that most government officials never accessed. The Marine captain consulted her tablet again, reading from what appeared to be an abbreviated security file. Admiral Reeves assumed command of SEAL Team 7 at age 34, making him the youngest officer ever to hold that position. 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Navy Crosses, and a Medal of Honor earned during operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and several locations that remain classified. His current mission involves coordinating anti-terrorism operations across 7 countries. Ashley slumped against the bathroom wall as the implications crashed over her. "We attacked someone whose father has a Medal of Honor," she whispered, her voice hollow with disbelief. "We cornered the daughter of a war hero who commands Navy SEALs." The social hierarchy that had driven her participation in the bullying seemed utterly meaningless when confronted with genuine heroism and national service. Admiral Reeves's voice continued through the communication device, addressing not just his daughter but clearly aware that others were listening. "Chloe has been trained since childhood in security protocols because of my position. She knows hand-to-hand combat, tactical awareness, and emergency procedures because hostile forces have attempted to target military families before. What you witnessed today represents years of specialized training designed to keep her alive." The explanation finally provided context for Chloe's inexplicable capabilities. She wasn't just a teenager who happened to know martial arts. She was someone who had been systematically prepared for exactly the kind of dangerous situations that most people never imagined facing. Her calm demeanor and professional competence weren't personality traits. They were survival skills developed through necessity. Commander Peterson addressed the 3 attackers directly, his tone carrying the weight of official military authority. "Young ladies, you need to understand that attacking Admiral Reeves's daughter during an active security alert constitutes a serious breach of federal protection protocols. Miss Reeves was under elevated threat status when you initiated physical contact, which classifies your actions as potentially compromising national security. Brianna began crying as the federal implications of their actions became clear. "We didn't know about any of this," she sobbed. Her earlier aggression completely evaporated. "We just thought she was stuck up because she got good grades. We didn't know she was protecting national security or that people were trying to hurt her family." The Marine captain pulled up additional information on her tablet, sharing details that painted a fuller picture of Chloe's remarkable family history. Admiral Reeves' wife, Dr. Sarah Reeves, is a former Army medic who served 3 tours as a trauma surgeon in combat zones. She currently runs the emergency department at Hartford Hospital, while maintaining security clearance for military medical consultations. This family has dedicated their lives to protecting others. The revelation about Chloe's mother added another layer to the extraordinary background they were discovering. This wasn't just a military family. Both parents were highly decorated veterans who had chosen careers focused on saving lives and protecting others. They had attacked someone whose entire family embodied service, sacrifice, and heroism at the highest levels. Admiral Reeves's voice came through the communication device again, this time addressing the broader situation with tactical precision. "Commander Peterson, what's the current threat assessment for the school? Are there any indications that hostile forces were aware of Chloe's location and schedule? Could this incident be connected to the intelligence breach?" The question sent chills through everyone present as they realized the Admiral was seriously considering whether their bathroom confrontation might have been orchestrated by foreign intelligence agencies. The idea that Ashley, Jenna, and Brianna could be suspected of being enemy operatives would have been laughable under normal circumstances, but nothing about this situation was normal anymore. "Negative, sir," Commander Peterson responded after consulting with his colleague. All 3 individuals appear to be legitimate students with no connections to hostile intelligence. This appears to be an isolated incident of civilian harassment that coincidentally occurred during elevated security protocols. Miss Reeves handled the situation perfectly according to her training. Chloe finally spoke up, her voice carrying the same professional competence she had demonstrated throughout the crisis. "Dad, these girls made a mistake, but they're not enemies. They're just teenagers who didn't understand what they were dealing with. I recommend treating this as a civilian matter rather than a security breach." Her recommendation revealed another aspect of her extraordinary upbringing, the ability to distinguish between genuine threats and civilian misunderstandings, even while under physical attack. She possessed the tactical wisdom to recognize that not every hostile action constituted an enemy operation, demonstrating judgment that most adults never developed. The full scope of who they had attacked was now unmistakably clear: a young woman trained by elite military personnel, protected by national security protocols, and connected to operations that affected global stability. Their simple bullying incident had revealed a hidden world of service and sacrifice that operated far beyond their suburban understanding. The transformation in how others would see her was about to begin. The transformation in the 3 attackers' perception of Chloe was as dramatic as it was immediate. Brianna, who had entered the bathroom with supreme confidence in her social dominance, now found herself pressed against the wall, staring at someone she was beginning to understand she had never really seen before. The quiet honor student who served coffee at school fundraisers was the daughter of one of America's most decorated military commanders, trained in combat techniques that most adults would never master. "I can't believe we thought you were weak," Jenna whispered, her voice filled with genuine awe and mounting horror at their colossal misjudgment. "All those times you helped people with homework or stayed quiet when people were being mean, We thought it meant you couldn't stand up for yourself." Her athletic confidence, built on years of volleyball victories, seemed pathetically insignificant compared to someone trained by Navy SEAL instructors. Ashley was experiencing something approaching an existential crisis as she processed the complete inversion of everything she thought she knew about social hierarchies. "You could have destroyed us at any time," she said, her voice barely audible. "Any time someone was rude to you, any time someone excluded you from groups, any time we made fun of you for being too serious. You could have ended it instantly, but you never did." The realization was profound and deeply unsettling. Chloe's restraint hadn't been weakness. It had been the disciplined control of someone who understood the true weight of power and chose not to abuse it. Her gentle responses to mockery and exclusion hadn't indicated inability to defend herself, but rather the wisdom of someone who recognized that most social conflicts weren't worth escalating to physical confrontation. Commander Peterson observed the girl's transformation with professional interest, recognizing the psychological impact of discovering that their fundamental assumptions about power dynamics had been completely wrong. "Miss Reeves has demonstrated exactly the kind of restraint and judgment that her training was designed to instill," he noted, "using minimal force to control a threatening situation while prioritizing civilian safety." The Marine captain added her own assessment, speaking as someone who had witnessed similar training protocols in military families. "Admiral Reeves's daughter could have ended this confrontation in seconds using techniques that would have required medical intervention. Instead, she chose control over domination, protection over retaliation. That level of discipline isn't common even among trained military personnel." Brianna began to understand the true magnitude of her error, not just in attacking Chloe, but in completely misreading her character and capabilities. "Every time we called you mouse girl or shadow hostess, every time we said you were invisible." She trailed off, unable to complete the thought. The quiet girl they had dismissed as socially irrelevant was someone whose father commanded operations that shaped international security. The sound of additional activity outside the bathroom window drew everyone's attention to the continued military response. More personnel were arriving on campus, coordinating with school administrators to ensure that the security protocols were properly implemented. Students could be seen being systematically accounted for and moved to secure locations, a process that demonstrated the seriousness with which military families' safety was protected. Jenna watched the organized efficiency of the security operation with growing comprehension of how completely she had misunderstood Chloe's world. "Your whole life is like this, isn't it?" she asked quietly. "Security protocols and threat assessments and people whose job it is to keep you safe because your family is that important to national security." Chloe's response revealed another dimension of her remarkable maturity. "It's not about importance," she said gently, her voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had grown up understanding genuine responsibility. "It's about service. My parents chose careers that put them at risk to protect others. The security measures exist because there are people who would hurt families like mine to compromise missions that save lives." The explanation helped the three girls begin to understand the weight that Chloe carried every day, living with the knowledge that her family was targeted by hostile forces, that her actions could potentially compromise critical military operations, and that she had to maintain perfect operational security while appearing to live a normal teenage life. Ashley found herself looking at Chloe with a mixture of respect and something approaching reverence. "How do you do it?" she asked. "How do you just go to classes and take tests and act normal when you know all this other stuff is happening? When you could handle any problem that comes up, but you have to pretend to be just another student?" The question touched on perhaps the most challenging aspect of Chloe's existence, the psychological burden of maintaining a cover identity, while possessing capabilities that could solve most of the problems her peers struggled with daily. Academic challenges that stressed other students were trivial compared to the scenarios she had trained for, yet she had to respond with appropriate concern to maintain her civilian persona. Commander Peterson received another communication through his device, then addressed the group with updated information. Admiral Reeves has confirmed that Miss Reeves should continue her normal school schedule once security protocols are lifted. Her cover identity remains crucial for operational security, which means today's incident should be contained to prevent compromising future family safety. The mention of cover identity sent another shockwave through the three former attackers as they realized that even Chloe's presence at Riverside High School was part of a carefully constructed security operation. She wasn't just a military daughter attending civilian school. She was actively maintaining a false identity to protect her family's operational security while her father conducted classified missions around the world. Brianna felt tears streaming down her face as the full scope of her mistakes became clear. "We could have ruined everything," she sobbed. "If we had hurt you, or if this had gotten public, we could have compromised your father's missions. People could have died because of us being stupid and jealous." The realization that their teenage drama could have had international consequences was overwhelming in its implications. They had attacked someone whose safety was protected by federal security protocols, someone whose exposure could compromise operations affecting global stability. Their petty jealousy and social aggression had nearly created a national security incident. The Marine captain delivered the final piece of information that completed their understanding of the transformation they had witnessed. Miss Reeves will return to her normal activities tomorrow, and she will continue to appear as the same quiet honor student you thought you knew. But now you understand that appearances can be profoundly deceiving, and that the most powerful people often choose to remain invisible until circumstances force them to reveal their true capabilities. The perception transformation was complete. Three bullies had discovered that their chosen victim was among the most protected and capable individuals they would ever encounter. In the days following the bathroom incident, Chloe faced a choice that would define not just her remaining high school experience, but her fundamental approach to living with extraordinary capabilities in an ordinary world. The military response team had offered several options: transfer to a specialized school for military dependents, enhanced security protocols that would make her federal protection obvious, or a return to her carefully maintained cover identity at Riverside High School. Standing in her family's kitchen the evening after the confrontation, surrounded by commendations and photos from her parents' military careers, Chloe made a decision that surprised even Admiral Reeves. "I want to go back," she told her father quietly, her voice carrying the same steady determination that had controlled the bathroom crisis. "I want to continue being exactly who I was before this happened." Admiral Reeves studied his daughter with the analytical eye of someone who had spent decades making life-or-death decisions based on character assessment. "Chloe, you understand that maintaining your cover identity will be significantly more challenging now. 3 students know your true background, and despite security briefings, information has a way of spreading in high school environments." The wisdom of her choice became apparent the next morning when Chloe walked through the hallways of Riverside High School. Instead of the invisible movement she had perfected over 3 years, students now watched her with expressions ranging from curiosity to respect to outright awe. Word had somehow spread, not the classified details of her father's missions, but enough information to transform her from overlooked honor student to someone whose background commanded attention. Brianna, Jenna, and Ashley had indeed been thoroughly briefed by federal security personnel about the consequences of discussing classified information. But teenagers possessed an almost supernatural ability to communicate without explicitly stating facts. Whispered conversations, meaningful glances, and carefully worded hints had created an atmosphere around Chloe that suggested hidden depths without revealing specific details. "Did you hear about what happened in the bathroom yesterday?" became the opening line of dozens of conversations throughout the school, though none of the participants could articulate exactly what they had heard. The story had been filtered through so many layers of speculation and security restrictions that it had become more legend than fact, which somehow made it even more compelling. Maya Chen, the student aide who had delivered the crucial message, found herself being questioned repeatedly about her role in the mysterious events. "All I know is that Chloe used some kind of military code phrase, and then helicopters showed up," she told anyone who would listen. But the way she said it, like she'd been using those codes her whole life. In her first period chemistry class, Chloe noticed the change immediately. Mrs. Patterson, who had always appreciated her academic diligence, now watched her with the respectful attention typically reserved for visiting dignitaries. Other students who had previously seen her as a helpful but unremarkable classmate now studied her movements with fascination, searching for clues about the extraordinary background that rumors suggested she possessed. During lunch period, Chloe made another choice that demonstrated her commitment to her values over her newfound status. Instead of sitting alone as she typically did, or accepting invitations from students who suddenly wanted to associate with someone who commanded mysterious respect, she approached the table where Brianna, Jenna, and Ashley sat in isolated shame. "May I sit with you?" she asked quietly, her question causing a hush to fall over nearby tables as students witnessed what appeared to be an act of either incredible mercy or strategic social maneuvering. The three girls who had attacked her looked up with expressions of disbelief mixed with desperate gratitude. "You want to sit with us?" Brianna whispered, her voice barely audible. "After what we did to you. After we found out who you really are." The question carried layers of meaning, disbelief that someone with Chloe's background would choose to associate with her attackers, and amazement that she would risk her elevated social status by publicly forgiving them. Chloe's response revealed the depth of character that her military training had been designed to develop. "You made a mistake based on incomplete information," she said simply, settling into the chair across from them. "My father taught me that true strength is measured by how you treat people who have wronged you, not by how you respond to those who respect you." The gesture sent ripples throughout the cafeteria as students witnessed something unprecedented, someone with proven power choosing reconciliation over retribution, service over status, and inclusion over isolation. Teachers who observed the interaction found themselves reevaluating their understanding of both teenage social dynamics and the character of the quiet student they thought they had known. Ashley spoke first, her voice thick with emotion. "We don't deserve this," she said, gesturing to Chloe's presence at their table. "We attacked you. We could have compromised your family's safety. We could have caused international incidents. You should hate us." "Hate requires too much energy," Chloe replied with a gentle smile that reminded them of the person they had dismissed as weak just days earlier. "And my parents didn't sacrifice their safety to protect a country where people can't forgive each other's mistakes. Besides, you taught me something important about the effectiveness of my cover identity. If 3 intelligent students could completely misread my capabilities, then my operational security is better than I thought." Jenna looked around the cafeteria, noting how other students were watching their interaction with intense curiosity. Everyone's going to think we're using you to improve our social status, she observed quietly. They're going to assume we're only friends with you now because we found out about your background. The concern was valid and demonstrated growing awareness of social complexities, but Chloe's response revealed her commitment to principles over appearances. Let them think whatever they want. I know why I'm here, and you know why I'm here. Other people's assumptions about our motivations don't change the reality of our choices. Her decision to publicly forgive and include her former attackers became a defining moment that established new social dynamics throughout Riverside High School. Students began reevaluating their assumptions about power, status, and character, recognizing that true authority came from the ability to lift others up rather than tear them down. The choice to maintain her cover identity while demonstrating genuine leadership principles had transformed Chloe from an invisible honor student into a quietly influential figure whose actions carried moral weight that transcended typical teenage hierarchies. The transformation that began with 3 girls in a bathroom expanded throughout Riverside High School over the following weeks, creating ripple effects that changed the institution's entire social ecosystem. Teachers began noticing fundamental shifts in how students approached conflict resolution, with confrontations increasingly resolved through conversation rather than aggression. The example Chloe had set, demonstrating overwhelming capability while choosing restraint and reconciliation, became a new standard that students unconsciously began to emulate. Principal Rodriguez found herself fielding calls from other educational administrators who had heard rumors about the incident that had triggered military security responses at a civilian high school. While classified details remained protected, the broader story of a student who had neutralized a bullying situation through superior training and then chosen forgiveness over retaliation was spreading through educational networks as an unprecedented case study in character development. We've seen a 40% reduction in disciplinary referrals since last month, Rodriguez reported during a district meeting, though she couldn't fully explain the correlation to her colleagues. Students are finding ways to resolve conflicts that don't require administrative intervention. It's as if they've discovered that real strength involves helping each other rather than dominating each other. The academic environment also began reflecting these changes. Study groups that had previously been exclusive social circles opened their membership to students who needed help, inspired by Chloe's ongoing willingness to tutor anyone who asked regardless of their previous treatment of her. Brianna, Jenna, and Ashley became particularly vocal advocates for inclusion. Their transformation from bullies to protectors of vulnerable students, serving as powerful testimony to the possibility of genuine character change. Coach Martinez observed similar changes in the athletic programs, where previously cutthroat competition for team positions evolved into collaborative training that elevated everyone's performance. I've never seen athletes more focused on team success than individual glory, he noted during a coaching staff meeting. They're pushing each other to excel rather than trying to make others fail. The shift was exemplified when Jenna Morris, using her newfound understanding of how badly she had misjudged Chloe's capabilities, began actively mentoring younger volleyball players who struggled with confidence. Her approach emphasized developing inner strength and tactical awareness rather than relying solely on physical advantages, principles she had learned from witnessing how someone much smaller had effortlessly controlled multiple larger opponents. Ashley Park channeled her experience into peer counseling, helping students who felt overlooked or invisible understand that their perceived weaknesses might actually be hidden strengths waiting for the right moment to emerge. Her sessions became popular among students who had been dismissed by others, offering them perspective on how dramatically situations could change when people revealed their true capabilities. The transformation extended beyond the school walls into the broader Millbrook community. Parents began receiving reports of their children demonstrating unusual maturity in handling peer conflicts, with teenagers suddenly displaying negotiation skills and emotional intelligence that seemed advanced beyond their years. The example of choosing service over dominance was inspiring behavioral changes that reached into family dynamics and community relationships. Local law enforcement noticed the changes as well. Officer Patricia Hendricks, the community liaison for Riverside High School, reported a significant decrease in teenage-related incidents throughout the district. "These kids are handling their problems differently," she observed during a town council meeting. "Instead of escalating conflicts, they're finding ways to de-escalate. It's like they've learned that real power comes from preventing problems rather than winning fights." The military community also took notice of the broader implications. Training instructors at various service academies began incorporating Chloe's example into their curricula, using her bathroom confrontation as a case study in appropriate force application and civilian protection protocols. Her decision to use minimal necessary force while maintaining complete tactical control became a textbook example of how military training should be applied in non-combat situations. Admiral Reeves received commendations from his superiors for his daughter's handling of the situation, but more importantly, he witnessed how her choices were inspiring positive changes in countless young lives. She understood something that many adults never grasp, he told his wife during a rare moment when operational security allowed them to discuss the incident. That true leadership means using your capabilities to elevate others, not to dominate them. The academic community began studying the phenomenon as well. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a sociology professor at the University of Connecticut, initiated a research project examining how single acts of principled behavior could create institutional culture changes. "We're witnessing something remarkable," she noted in her preliminary findings. "One individual's demonstration of restraint, capability, and forgiveness has triggered systematic behavioral modifications throughout an entire social structure." The changes weren't limited to conflict resolution. Academic performance across multiple metrics improved as students began approaching challenges with the same systematic preparation they had observed in Chloe's response to crisis. Study habits became more disciplined, project planning more thorough, and collaborative work more effective. As students adopted the methodical approaches they associated with military-level competence, college admissions counselors began reporting that applications from Riverside High School demonstrated unusual maturity and character development. Essays focused less on personal achievements and more on service to others, leadership through example, and the understanding that true strength involved lifting others up rather than competing against them. The technology industry also took notice when several Riverside graduates entered computer science programs with unprecedented emphasis on ethical applications of their skills. Their approach to coding and system design reflected principles of using capabilities responsibly and protecting those who might be vulnerable to technological exploitation. Mental health professionals observed improvements in teenage anxiety and depression rates throughout the Millbrook area, correlating with students' growing understanding that perceived weaknesses might actually be sources of hidden strength. The example of someone who had appeared vulnerable while possessing extraordinary capabilities helped many young people reconsider their self-assessments and social positioning. The story had become larger than any individual involved, creating lasting institutional and community changes that would influence thousands of young lives for years to come. The story of what happened in that Riverside High School bathroom became more than just a tale of mistaken assumptions. It evolved into a powerful reminder that extraordinary people walk among us every day, hidden in plain sight, choosing service over recognition and restraint over domination. In a world where social media celebrates loudness over substance and aggression over wisdom, Chloe Reeves's example stands as testament to the quiet heroes who protect us without seeking applause. 5 years later, Brianna Kowalski graduated from the University of Vermont with a degree in conflict resolution, her senior thesis exploring how single acts of principled behavior can transform entire communities. She credits that bathroom confrontation as the moment she learned the difference between power and strength, between dominance and leadership. "I spent my teenage years trying to prove I was strong by making others feel weak," she reflects. "Chloe showed me that real strength comes from making others feel strong." The ripple effects continue to expand in ways that would have seemed impossible during those tense minutes when 3 bullies cornered someone they thought was helpless. Jenna now works as a youth counselor, specializing in helping teenagers who feel overlooked develop confidence in their hidden capabilities. Her approach emphasizes looking beyond surface appearances to recognize the potential that exists within every person, regardless of how society might categorize or dismiss them. Ashley Park joined the Peace Corps after college, inspired by Chloe's example of using capabilities to serve others rather than advance personal interests. Her work in rural Guatemala focuses on teaching conflict resolution techniques to communities torn by decades of violence, carrying forward the lesson that true victory comes through reconciliation rather than retaliation. The educational impact of that day continues to reverberate through Riverside High School, where the Chloe standard has become an unofficial benchmark for how students handle conflicts and use whatever advantages they possess. Teachers report that bullying incidents have remained at historic lows, with students increasingly understanding that targeting others based on assumptions about their capabilities or backgrounds is not just morally wrong but potentially catastrophically misjudged. Maya Chen, now Dr. Maya Chen, completed her doctoral dissertation on hidden heroism in educational environments, studying how educational institutions can better recognize and nurture the extraordinary potential that exists within seemingly ordinary students. Her research has influenced training programs for educators nationwide, helping teachers identify and support students whose backgrounds or capabilities might not fit traditional academic categories. Principal Rodriguez implemented new anti-bullying programs based on the understanding that aggression often stems from fundamental misunderstanding of others' experiences and capabilities. "We teach students to ask questions about each other's stories before making assumptions about their strengths or weaknesses," she explains. "Sometimes the quietest person in the room has the most important story to tell." The military community has also drawn lasting lessons from Chloe's example. Training programs for military dependents now emphasize not just personal protection techniques, but the responsibility that comes with possessing extraordinary capabilities. The principle of appropriate response, using exactly the force necessary to resolve a threat without causing unnecessary harm, has become a cornerstone of how military families prepare their children for civilian life. Admiral Reeves, now retired from active duty and serving as a military ethics instructor, frequently uses his daughter's bathroom confrontation as an example in leadership seminars. "True leadership," he tells his students, "is demonstrated not by how you use your advantages against the weak, but by how you protect the weak using your advantages." Chloe could have dominated that situation through force, but she chose control. She could have humiliated her attackers after the truth was revealed, but she chose inclusion. The story has found its way into military academies, police training programs, and corporate leadership seminars as an example of how extraordinary capabilities should be exercised in civilian contexts. The phrase, "wrong girl, wrong day," has become shorthand for the dangers of underestimating others based on surface appearances, while Chloe's response has become a model for how power should be wielded responsibly. Perhaps most importantly, the incident has inspired countless young people to reconsider their own potential and responsibilities. Social media groups dedicated to everyday heroes regularly share stories of individuals who, like Chloe, possess extraordinary capabilities but choose to use them in service of others, rather than for personal glory or dominance. The message resonates particularly strongly in an era when traditional authority structures are being questioned and young people are searching for authentic examples of principled leadership. Chloe's story offers a template for how to handle power responsibly, how to be extraordinary while remaining humble, how to be capable while choosing kindness, and how to be strong while dedicating that strength to protecting others. If you believe that heroes walk among us disguised as ordinary people, if you think the most powerful individuals are often those who choose to remain invisible until necessity demands they reveal their true capabilities, then you understand why this story matters. It reminds us to look beyond surface appearances, to treat others with respect, regardless of how they might appear, and to recognize that the person sitting quietly in the corner might possess the skills to change the world. Type, "I believe in hidden heroes" in the comments if you think there are extraordinary people all around us, choosing service over recognition, protection over domination, and wisdom over force. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that strength comes in many forms, that the most powerful people often appear the most ordinary, and that true heroism isn't about being recognized. It's about being ready when the moment demands action. This story is dedicated to all the military families who sacrifice in silence, all the young people who carry extraordinary responsibilities while maintaining ordinary appearances, and all the everyday heroes who protect others without seeking credit. Your service doesn't go unnoticed, even when it goes unrecognized. Sometimes the most important victories are the ones where no one gets hurt, and the greatest demonstrations of strength are the ones where force is unnecessary because wisdom was sufficient. The bathroom at Riverside High School now bears a small plaque that simply reads, "Character is what you do when you think no one is watching, and how you respond when everyone is." Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.